The day you finally become the first millionaire your family has ever produced isn't the day your own life shifts. It's the day everybody else's does. The transfer landed on a Tuesday. $1.3 million for something you'd been quietly building for 11 straight years, something nobody in your family ever really understood. You didn't throw a party. You sat in your driveway with the engine off, watching your 66-year-old father lying on a flattened piece of cardboard beneath your car, draining the oil himself because he insisted the shop would charge $40 for a $10 task. He didn't know a single thing about the deal. Then your phone buzzed in the cup holder. A single message. Your brother heard you sold, "We need to talk." You read it twice because here's the strange part. You hadn't told him anything. You hadn't told anyone at all. Sitting right there in that driveway, you decide you're going to keep this quiet for a while. You haven't said the figure out loud to a single soul. Your mother doesn't know. Nobody knows. So how exactly does your brother already know? You hadn't posted a thing. The sale was private. The only people aware of it were attorneys and a bank, and not one of them has ever met your brother. You start typing back, "Who told you?" Then you erase it because you already grasped something you'll never be able to forget for the rest of your life. Money is the one secret that always finds a way to tell itself. You flip the phone face down under the car. Your father grunts, tightens the drain plug, and asks whether there's a funnel in the garage. Not did the sale go through, not are we rich now, just funnel. You go grab it, and for roughly 4 minutes, standing there holding a plastic funnel, everything still feels ordinary. The phone buzzes again. You ignore it. It buzzes a third time. This time you check. 3 texts now, every one from your brother. The final one is only 2 words, and those 2 words crack open something you never realized could break. Don't forget. You don't yet know what you're supposed to remember, but soon you will. Instead, your mind drifts to a night 14 years back. You were so broke you could hear the refrigerator humming because there was almost nothing sitting inside it. Your brother, who barely had anything himself, drove 40 minutes through the cold and pushed his final $40 into your palm, refusing to take it back. "Pay me once you're a millionaire," he'd joked. You stare at the text again. Don't forget. Word spreads the way it always does. Through your mother, who can no longer keep a secret than a screen door can block a draft. By the weekend, the whole family knows. So the family does exactly what families do whenever something enormous happens. They throw together a cookout. It's loud, it's warm, and it's exactly the kind of afternoon you would have adored a year earlier. Folding tables, your uncle scorching the burgers on purpose because that's simply who he is. Kids sprinting through a sprinkler, and you moving through the middle of it all, noticing everyone watching you just a little differently than before. Your brother approaches with a beer in hand and a wide grin, announcing loud enough for the whole table to hear. Watch out for this guy. He'll start charging you for the ride home now. The table erupts in laughter, and you laugh right along with them. That's the trap because it feels exactly like love. It isn't. It only wears the shape of love, the teasing, the whole family chuckling at the kid who made it big. For one brief second, you actually let yourself believe nothing has shifted. Your aunt asks whether you've eaten. Your uncle raises a charred burger like it's a trophy, and somebody pours a drink. It's effortless. It's family. For the first time all week, your shoulders finally drop. Then the cousin you barely ever speak to slides in beside you, and half joking, mostly serious, asks, "So when you start hiring, you'll think of family first, right?" He laughs, you laugh, somebody else laughs too. A joke you're starting to realize is simply how people ask for something they're too afraid to say plainly. Underneath every laugh sits a small, open hand, waiting. You glance back across the yard hunting for your brother's grin, but it's already gone. He's watching you brush the joke aside, and something flashes across his face, quick, then vanished. Disappointment. He hadn't wanted it to be a joke. He wanted it to actually land. Standing there with your paper plate going soft in your grip, you realize the hardest conversation of your entire life still hasn't happened yet. And it's about to start with the one person who once handed you everything he had. You aren't looking for trouble. That's what makes what comes next worse. You're at the car dealership for something dull, a recall notice, 40 minutes you'll never get back. You're at the service counter when you spot him through the glass. Your brother, out on the lot, walking a salesman down a row of SUVs, moving the way a man moves when he wants to be noticed moving. He hasn't spotted you yet, so you watch, doing math you wish you didn't know how to do. You know his paycheck. You know his rent. You know exactly what he can realistically carry. And the truck he's circling isn't something he can carry. It's something that will carry him for maybe 4 months before it starts dragging him under. Then he notices you, and he doesn't look caught. He looks thrilled, waving you over loudly enough for the salesman to hear too. Perfect timing. Tell me this isn't clean. Slapping the hood as if he already owns it. And you understand instantly this was never about the truck. A week earlier, he'd seen your car. This is his response. For 20 minutes, you watch your brother talk himself into a vehicle he doesn't actually want. All to impress a brother who never asked for any of it. He announces the price before anyone even asks, then checks your face to see if it registered. He isn't buying a truck. He's buying back the few inches he believes he lost the day your wire cleared. And here's the part you can't say out loud. You'd trade every single dollar to get back the brother who once drove 40 minutes through the cold to hand you his last 40. That version of him gave when he had nothing. This version is spending money he doesn't have so the gap between you two won't be visible. People rarely resent your success. What they resent is what it reveals about their own choices. By the time you make it home, it isn't only him anymore. There's an aunt texting your phone now, a quick opportunity, just needs a little help getting moving. You'd practically be doing her a favor. Your mother starts a sentence she never used to say. Well, now that you can afford it, not a question, a reclassification. You used to be her son. Now you're a resource wearing her son's face and you haven't spent one single dollar yet. Then your brother calls, not a text this time, an actual call. He wants you to swing by, wants to run something past you, and there's a tested softness in his voice you haven't heard in months, the old softness. And despite everything you just watched unfold on that lot, it works on you. You want so badly for it to be the old him that you agree before you've even hung up the phone. You shouldn't have. You sit at his kitchen table, the same table you've sat at 100 times before. There's coffee. He seems nervous in a way that almost earns your trust because the man at the dealership hadn't been nervous about anything at all. Then he names the number, $40,000, and beneath the table 14 years quietly rearrange themselves. $40 then, $40,000 now. Pay me when you're a millionaire. He isn't asking for a loan. In his mind, he's collecting one. It can't lose, he says those exact words, then lays out a plan that's 80% confidence and 20% actual detail. This is the moment you're supposed to say no. For a second, you almost do. You think about the lot, the slapped hood, the price he said aloud purely to watch your reaction. A quiet voice inside you insists he doesn't actually want help. He wants to be even, and you can't buy a man even. You know that voice is correct. You say yes anyway. You're not saying yes to the deal. You're saying yes to the face sitting across the table, to the small chance that this money buys back the brother who once drove through the cold. It's only money, you tell yourself. Of all people, you can afford to be wrong about $40,000. The relief spreading across his face almost makes it worthwhile. Almost. And for a stretch, it genuinely works. This is the part nobody ever warns you about because it's the part that causes the real damage. 2 weeks later, he shows up at your house on a Sunday morning, unannounced, carrying 2 coffees and dragging a ladder strapped to that absurd new truck. He mentions he noticed your gutters sagging the last time he drove past, and he simply climbs up and fixes them himself. 3 hours, no charge for any of it. Halfway up the ladder, he glances down and gives you that real grin, the 14 years ago grin, and says, "I'm paying every dollar back, you know that, right?" And you believe him. Standing in your own yard holding coffee he bought you, you believe him completely. You think you've been wrong about all of it. The dealership, the aunt, the open hands everywhere. Money didn't destroy you. It got tested, and it held. You let your guard drop entirely. That's exactly when it collapses. The call arrives the following Sunday. The deal that supposedly couldn't lose lost every cent. There's no apology, no thank you for the $40,000 that simply evaporated. Instead, there's something you don't recognize at first because you've never once heard it from him. He's asking for more. Not quite asking, actually. He's explaining why you're going to hand it over. The first 40 was only to get in the door, he says. Pulling out now wastes it completely. You can't stop halfway? You wouldn't even feel another 30? He says it as though your money is a limb that's already gone numb. You sit there with the phone pressed to your ear and say nothing. You're not even thinking about the 30,000 anymore. You're thinking about the ladder, the gutters, the grin, and how he must have already known about this failing deal that very Sunday morning. The coffee, the gutters, all of it. The gesture wasn't kindness. It was a deposit. Generosity, the instant you hand it over, stops being a gift and quietly becomes the new baseline. So you tell him no, your first real no. It comes out gentler than you intend, almost sounding like an apology. He goes silent, says, okay, says I understand, hangs up. 2 days of nothing follow. You begin thinking the no actually held. Then your mother calls, opening with a sentence that instantly reveals exactly who reached her first. Why are you doing this to your brother? You barely know how to respond because the question has already decided you're guilty before you've said a word. You try explaining the 40,000, the deal that collapsed, the second request, and you hear your mother go quiet on the other end. Not listening quiet, waiting for you to finish so she can say the thing she actually called to say. He's struggling, she tells you, and you have so much now. There it is. So much now, as if the number changed what you owe her, as if love arrived with a sliding scale and yours just went up a notch. You want to tell her he didn't lose the money, he set it on fire, and then called you begging for more gasoline. But you don't because she's your mother and because part of you knows she isn't trying to be cruel. She's simply standing where she's always stood, between her two sons, except now one of them has everything and the other one has a story, and she's already decided which one needs her more. I'll think about it, you say. You won't. But you say it anyway. After you hang up, you sit there realizing your brother never even argued with your number. He didn't need to. He simply walked down the hallway to a room you can't enter and let your mother carry the message back to you. He isn't fighting you anymore, he's recruiting. A boundary feels like betrayal to anyone who is counting on hearing yes. It spreads quietly from there. It's never one big confrontation. That's the part nobody warns you about. It's a text left unread for the first time in your life. It's an uncle who used to call you champ now calling you money bags with a laugh that carries a small hook buried inside it. None of it is ever big enough to point at directly. If you brought up any single piece of it, you'd sound paranoid, rich and paranoid. So you say nothing, you just notice the temperature of every room drop half a degree the second you walk in. And somewhere in the middle of all this, your father, who still hasn't said one single word about the money, shows up unannounced that same week, the way he always does, for no particular reason. He doesn't need anything repaired, and he never brings up the money. He simply sits at your kitchen table for an hour, drinking coffee, telling you a long, pointless story about a guy he used to work with, chuckling at his own punchline. Then he rinses his mug, sets it in the rack, and heads home. No opportunity, no now that you can afford it. He just drove over to sit with you and do absolutely nothing. You don't think much of it at the time. You will later. Because right now, all you can feel is the strange, sudden loneliness of becoming the most resented person inside a family that used to feel entirely yours. Thanksgiving is 11 days away. You almost skip it entirely. You sit in the driveway for a minute first, the very same driveway where all of this began, and you consider turning the car around, but you go in anyway, because not going would be its own kind of confession. And because part of you still believes a table full of food can hold a family together through sheer force. For about an hour, it almost does. Everyone's careful. The conversation stays on safe territory. The food, the game, somebody's kid's braces. Your brother sits across the table, not beside you, an arrangement nobody actually announced out loud. He's quieter than you've ever seen him at a family table. He's had a few drinks, and you can watch him deciding something, so you keep chatting with your aunt about nothing at all, just to avoid watching him decide it. Your mother keeps the plates circulating. Pass this. Did you try that? She's working far too hard at it, and everyone can tell, and that over-effort is its own kind of noise. Then it happens, something small. Your father asks plainly across the table how the new place is coming along. The only person all evening who's asked you a normal question like you're still just a normal person. Before you can even answer, your brother sets down his fork. "Must be nice," he says. Not loudly, that's the thing. He says it almost gently. The table doesn't go silent immediately. That's not how it unfolds. A couple people keep chatting for another second before trailing off once they feel it. Your mother says his name once, softly, a warning that doubles as a plea. He isn't looking at his food anymore. He's looking straight at you. No grin this time, no joke, none of the usual armor, just something tired and certain sitting underneath it all. "We lost you the day that money landed," he says. "You didn't get rich, you just stopped being one of us." And the worst part, the part that makes it truly land instead of simply bounce off, is that he isn't shouting. He actually believes it. He says it the way someone says something they've been quietly carrying for months, softly, almost mournfully, as though he's grieving you right there at your own dinner table. Nobody defends you? That's the second wound, or because anyone agrees with him, but because King LCC to right on the heels of the first. Not staying silent is easier than picking a side out loud. And silence, you're slowly learning, is its own kind of answer. You glance at your mother. She's staring at her plate. You look toward your father, and your father is the only one still looking back at you. For one brief second, before you can stop it, a thought you're ashamed of slips through you. Maybe he's right. Maybe you really did change. Maybe the money did something to you that you simply can't see from the inside. It vanishes as quickly as it arrived, but it leaves a mark behind. Because the cruelest part of an unfair accusation is that half second you spend actually wondering whether it might be true. You set down your napkin, mumble something quiet about needing to head out, and nobody argues. That's the loneliest part of the entire night, how easily they let you leave. People will forgive you for having money. They will never forgive you for having a limit. You're almost at your car in the driveway when you hear a door open behind you. Footsteps crunching on the gravel, not fast, not your brother's. You don't turn around yet, though you already sense whose steps they are. You don't know it yet, standing there in the cold with your keys in hand. But this is the last ordinary moment you're going to get before everything changes completely. The footsteps belong to your father. He doesn't mention what just happened inside. He simply stands beside you in the cold for a moment, glances at your car, and says, "Drive safe. Call your mother in a few days." Then he pats the roof twice, the same way he's done since you were 16, and heads back inside to a table that is just broken apart. That turns out to be the last ordinary conversation you ever have with him. The call comes 3 weeks later on a Wednesday, which is exactly how you'll always remember it, that it wasn't even a weekend, that the day had no particular reason to matter. Your mother's voice. You can't process the words at first, only their shape. Hospital, now, come now. You don't remember the drive over. You remember the hallway, the particular quiet of a hospital at night, how the floor gleams, how loud your own shoes sound. You remember your brother already standing there against the wall, and how for the first time in over a year there is absolutely nothing standing between the two of you. No money, no truck, no scorekeeping, just two sons standing in a hallway. He looks at you and his face does something it hasn't done in months. It simply crumples. You place a hand on his shoulder and he lets you leave it there. Neither of you says a single word about any of it. It's simply gone. In an instant, the entire war dissolves, because it was never big enough to survive a hallway like this one. Your father is awake, smaller than you've ever seen him, but awake. The worst of the scare has passed. The doctors are choosing their words carefully. He's exhausted. He wants the room cleared for a few minutes. He wants you specifically. You sit in the chair beside his bed. You don't know what to say, so you say the dumb, true thing that he scared you badly. He smiles faintly at that. Then, in the plain voice of a man too worn out to dress anything up, he finally tells you something he's never told a single soul. The 40 acres upstate, your grandfather's land, the only thing your father ever owned that actually meant something to him, the place he'd told you 100 times he wanted to be buried on. He sold it the spring before you started your business. You never knew. You always assumed the money that got you off the ground came from his savings, some cushion he'd quietly kept aside. It was the land. It was always the land. He sold his own father's ground out from beneath his feet, quietly folded that money into your beginning, and never said one word about it. Not when the business nearly collapsed, not when it finally turned around. Not that Tuesday when the wire cleared and you became the first millionaire in the family, standing on soil he'd surrendered so you could stand anywhere at all. You sit there and the entire past year turns over in your hands and becomes something different. You built it, every brutal hour of those 11 years belonged to you, and no one can ever take that away. But you never built it entirely alone. The one person who never once asked you for $1 is the same person who quietly made your very first dollar possible, then erased his own fingerprint so thoroughly that you spent an entire year believing you'd done it all by yourself, while your brother, who once gave you $40, never once let you forget it. You ask him the only question you can manage. Why? Why keep it secret? Why let you believe it was entirely yours? He tells you about his own brother, your uncle, a name from when you were small, a man who stopped visiting before you were old enough to ask why. Money, your father says. He lent his brother money once, a long time ago. And after that, the money was always in the room with the two of them at every holiday, every phone call, sitting at the table like some third person, until one day his brother simply stopped showing up. Because it's easier to lose a brother than to sit across from a debt forever. I wasn't going to do that to you, he says. I wasn't going to put a number between us, so I made sure there wasn't one left to find. The ones who never ask are the only ones who are never keeping score. He's tired now. He closes his eyes and tells you to send your brother back in. You're both still mine, he says. And that's the entire sermon, the only thing he ever says about the war that nearly tore his family apart. He refuses to take a side. He simply won't allow there to be one. He comes home eventually. He's fine, slower, but fine. And nothing actually gets fixed. Nothing at all. Your brother never pays back the $40,000. Your mother never apologizes for that phone call. The family never resets to who they were before the wire cleared, because families don't reset. They simply learn their new shape and keep moving forward. But something inside you has finally gone quiet. The resentment you'd been dragging around, the scorecard you didn't even realize you were keeping, it's simply gone. Not because anyone earned it back, but because you finally understand exactly which kind of person each of them truly is, and you've stopped expecting any of them to become someone else. The money never changed your family. It simply switched the lights on and revealed who had actually been loving you in the dark this entire time. It's a Saturday. Several months later, your father's car starts making a sound he doesn't like, and he's about to drive it to the shop. And you tell him, "No, I've got this." So you lie down on a flattened cardboard box in your own driveway, slide underneath your father's car, and change his oil yourself. It's a $10 job. The shop would charge $40. That was never really the point, and you understand that now. You stay under there longer than the job actually requires, on your back in the quiet, your hands doing the exact thing his hands once did. You finally understand what he'd been saying all those years with a wrench and a toolbox and a gate that no longer dragged. He was never really fixing the car. He was saying, "I love you," in the only language he ever had, the one that never asks for anything back, the one that never keeps score, the one you couldn't fully hear until the year everyone else got loud. You tighten the drain plug, you slide back out into the light. Your father stands on the porch watching you, saying nothing. You don't say anything either.